Tony, you're light. I am a little in the middle. I think I've about got me figured out.
I turned my gain down.
Yeah, almost a little bit too much. One nudge above that would be good. And then Tony, fucking 3 nudges up.
All right, hang on. Let me turn up the gain a bit.
Red, leather,
so
yellow,
the
leather.
problem I have here is
there we go.
Now we're starting to peak. But so the problem
Why are you peaking? Because you're not peaking here.
Quiet.
Shit, I'm squeaking. Hold on. I bumped my desk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Technically Inappropriate. It's been a bit, hasn't it? I know. You missed Rob, Russ, and Tony's weird-ass niche jokes and references to movies that you may have never seen. But I'm sure that you missed these off-the-wall intros even more, right? Oh, I'm touched. Anyway, look, today we've finally got a new riveting episode. If you like small dogs, learning about what plumbers deal with while out on the job, or way too much about what 3 middle-aged tech bros do with their sex life, then you're only gonna enjoy approximately 17 minutes and 30 seconds of this episode. Actually, the TMI on the sex life persists the whole episode, so you freaky little deviants are in luck this time. So, for all you other peeps who are here for the tech talk, this episode is called some variation of Software is Getting Worse. I'm sure all of us can relate to the frustrations around software. Whether it's getting error messages, too many ad pop-ups in your program that claims it's free, or something going so wrong that your computer blue screens and bursts into flames. For Tony, it seems that the Amazon Fire Stick is the focus of his frustrations. And conveniently, the motivation for this episode. All that said, please join me and the boys on this fun and long overdue trip down tech engineering road where we slowly but efficiently lose all our prospective sponsors. Oh, and to all of you here for the dogs, I'm going to give you a hand. 153 through 632. But skip 413 through 444 because they talk about pets leaving us for the Rainbow Bridge, and that's just a little too real for some of us out there. Okay, now cue the episode.
Yes, the whole thing.
And so, gentlemen, if I'd known that was how it was going to go, I swear I would never have left my underwear near the monkey enclosure. Oh, are we recording?
Oh, yeah, no, we're starting now.
So we started.
Right, let's
somewhere in there.
kick this
Jesus. All right. Well, with the idea that I am trying to make sure that we don't make state's evidence, let's continue this podcast in the fashion we usually do, which is gonna get state's evidence. So I am Rob, and with me as always is Tony and Russ. We are. What is the hell we call this? It has been so long.
Technically inappropriate.
It is. Maybe we should talk about the monkey enclosure. Maybe we should talk about the monkey enclosure. I'm just saying. Gentlemen, welcome back. We've got some backlog we can play with at some point, but for now, just fucking great to see the two of you. How you been? Russ, what's life?
It's good to see you guys. The fans are asking for more. And by that I mean our 2 fans and the one guy in New Zealand.
No,
Mr. Kiwi.
Oh, someone's...
And those 2 guys.
Someone's abusing a dog.
How is Denver doing, by the way, Tony?
Denver is doing is very upset about something walking around the front of the house there.
As they do, as Denver does.
Let me shut the door.
Noted.
So that we now will only get muffled comments from Russell and Wilson. For those of you on the podcast that don't know, I have 2 miniature schnauzers, and when we got them, my wife was like, "Well, what are we going to call them?" And I said, "Well, we should get a name that works." For both dogs. And so I suggested, we could do Richard and Sherman. And she's like, no. And I'm like, all right, well, what about Earl and Thomas? And she's like, no. I said, well, okay, then we're going to call them Russell and Wilson. And that was awesome because people around Seattle where we live, they said, what are your doggies called? I said, well, this is Wilson, which is because they're brother and sister. So this is Wilson. And the boy here is Russell. And then you'd watch them for a bit. They'd put it together and go, oh, that's an awesome name. That's an awesome name. But
the first time I've realized that you have a dog that I share a name with. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, it gives you an idea of where we view you in terms of the hierarchy.
Yeah, well, just scratch my belly.
That said, what it means is you can pee on the rug and crap indoors, and we'll still feed you.
Okay, I've proven that.
So yeah, yeah. This was all a great name up until his first contract extension, and then I was like, crap, I'm going to end up with the 2 dogs named after the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Nope. Thank God for that.
I like the idea of. I have a dog who I love with all my heart, and he's my best friend. But he's got 1 foot on a banana peel and 3 feet in the grave. So we keep having these conversations about what's going to happen next. And I would love to have 2 dogs, and I want them to have corresponding names like Chicken and Waffles or something, right? And we just keep having this conversation, but then I can't have that conversation for too long because then I will think about the impending demise of my best friend, and I just start reviewing.
I had a previous miniature Schnauzer. Miniature Schnauzers, by the way, are fantastic dogs. I had a previous miniature Schnauzer, and his name was Umlaut. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss her.
And going from 1 dog to 2 was really the right decision. It was because they sort of look after each other.
Yeah.
I think if you were gonna, if we had started this whole thing 30 years ago, you'd get 1 dog, let it grow up to sort of middle age, and then get the second one, so that you basically just
always make sure one dog is wonder where his friend is.
You've got a rotation going on.
Yeah.
But more in the sense that as the younger dogs come into the house, the older dogs teach them, you sit here, this is how you beg, this is where the food falls off the table, here's where you crap in the backyard, that sort of thing. And they're never too old to have a new dog,
right?
Because if you've got, because miniature Schnauzers will live to 16 odd years old or so, and so you don't want to get a puppy when one is 16. That's like introducing a baby to your great grandmother.
Yeah, she don't want to see that.
So
no.
Anyway, moving on from the technically inappropriate part of introducing babies to your grandmother, Russ, what's been going on with you?
I've been doing nothing but cooking Thanksgiving meals for the last week. I did 2 last week, and then I did another one this week. But I will say, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I am really good at making a Thanksgiving dinner. So we've been making
the crap out of the carnitas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So we, thank you for making that on the Great Deck reapportionment.
There will be videos or audio about this.
I'm slowly teaching Josie, my wife, that I'm happy to cook and clean the kitchen. Oh, Rob, Josie, my wife. But
said it.
The only way the system works is if I can be left alone in the kitchen and listen to my podcast. So, she'll be like, "Oh, you're prepping stuff," and I'm like, "Please leave my kitchen. I'm listening to podcasts.
I need to listen to Tony talk to me the whole time during my kitchen.
Yes, I'm listening to reruns of Technically Inappropriate." That's pretty. Oh man, that sounds really sad.
Yeah.
I can't believe he said that. You know, what a
Oh shit! I'm squeaking like a motherfucker. Okay, all right. Sorry, I bumped my desk.
No, you're good.
Anyway.
I think
Fortunately, ladies and gentlemen,
it.
this is a podcast, so you can't see what Russ is doing to generate those squeaks.
It's like
We can, however, as you would likely, probably know, it is banned in 17 different countries,
including Puerto Rico.
Fortunately, it only takes 5 seconds. So
Russ is one of nature's sprinters.
I need.
Oh, Tony, the shit that comes out of your mouth sometimes.
I need that on a
As
t-shirt.
Hans Gruber said, it is the benefit of a classical education.
As long as you define classical on your own.
Anyway, it's been great. I got to see all my kids over the holidays, and everybody's doing good, and making their way in the world. And
Excellent.
Things are happening. We got college applications out. I got another kid who's finding his way in the world, and we're
Almost
it's
time
all
for
good.
that kid you didn't expect to come along. It's perfect.
There's that was like the worst possible thing. You just gave me an 18-year sentence.
Can I just be in prison? I'd rather be in prison. Let's just be in prison.
Rob, that's
All right, so
what
moving on
vasectomies
from
are
that.
for.
Let's drag this back to the. Do you want to? I guess we should see what Rob's doing.
Oh, yeah, what is Rob doing?
No, Rob hasn't done shit. Oh wait, no. So let's see. All the usual things. Still playing soccer, which Tony hates. But outside of that, I've also joined the dart league because it's been fun reconnecting with some friends. My therapist
Hurling pointed arrows at people has
Absolutely.
been a popular favorite since the Battle of Agincourt.
I think the people we play probably hate the fact that I'm throwing the darts while they're still trying to pull theirs out. But, it works for me, so I'm good. And outside of that, my therapist has me running I'm up to 10K every 2 days now. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's at that point. I was going to run today, but instead I decided to record this podcast. So I got to run tomorrow now. But yeah, it helps quite a bit. So a lot of different things in that regard. I'm playing a video game again for the first time ever. I hesitate to say what it is, Genshin Impact, because apparently anime is still a thing even in video games. All these we need to build a pay video game.
Russ, that what he was saying was he was concerned about talking about it because it was all tentacle porn.
Absolutely, tentacle
absolutely.
porn.
Yeah.
No, you pay more for the you.
There's a
The game's quote unquote free, but you can get all the upgrades for money, and I'm like, 10 minutes later, you're 10 grand in. You're like, how the hell did my life end up like this?
He's got at least a half order of the local Albanian Italian restaurant's calamari up his ass right now, Tony.
Oh, it is squirming around in there like nobody's business. You don't even want to know.
But Russ, that's why he doesn't squeak.
That's okay. Fair
I
enough.
squish. I don't squeak. I squish. It doesn't show up on mics as much, so it works out. It's a good cushion between my squish and my
moving on.
squeak. So anyway, yeah, that's my Tony, what's going on with you? We should get off me as quickly as possible. I'm only going to take this into the gutter.
No, I don't know where you can. Nobody actually wants to know where you can take calamari anally inserted to.
I mean,
What I'm guessing, though,
the tools
is
alone are
no
impressive.
family restaurant.
well, not that kind of family.
Well, not twice.
only once.
The fun part.
I have to find a new one every week.
The fun part is my kids' friends listen to this podcast and are anxiously awaiting the next release.
This is what you signed up for, friends.
Sorry.
My calamari injections.
So I had I've had
I bumped my table.
Russ and the squeaking. Swear to God, it's like you're strangling a gerbil there.
Well, maybe I am.
His name's not Richard Gere. We're fine.
Yeah.
Wait, there's no Richard
so-
or Gere in your names, right? We already learned some of the
So
dogs.
I had a little bit of a plumbing problem that was not involving gerbils or calamari.
Call the
Or an
police.
Incinelette?
No, it wasn't even involved in the Incinelette either. The pipe that provides water to my refrigerator started leaking. And it leaked in that perfect way where nothing it was a problem. And then all of a sudden you get a stain with some mold on the ceiling. And you're like, all right, that's a bit of a leak. So I get the bucket with some bleach. I'll just clean that off. Then I'll cut a hole and take a look. And when you put the scrubbing brush on the ceiling, a 1 foot circle sort of falls out. And it turns out that there is 25 square feet of absolutely soaking drywall in the basement ceiling. So, yeah, so we pulled that down, and they have this tool called. So I had to cut out the copper pipe and everything. They have this tool called ProPress, or this technology called ProPress for plumbing. And it's basically, it's like a crimping tool. You put the copper pipe in, you put the fitting over it, and you get a tool, and it just crimps down on the fitting. So there's no brazing. You don't have to screw around with drying out the pipe and
It's approved to be in wall.
fluxing and everything. You just put the fitting over the pipe, crimp down, and Bob's your mother's brother, right?
And it's approved to be in wall as well.
Approved to be in wall and the whole thing. The key to it is that the tools cost the cheapest one I could find if I went to buy it was $1,700 US.
What the fuck?
Right.
Oh my God.
So it was just lucky that my neighbor has his brother is a plumber or does house stuff or something. He had one of these tools. So when I asked him for a recommendation for a plumber, because the thing is, the leak was in one T-joint. And it's like, oh, fuck, trying to get a plumber to come out to do one T-joint while they're all sitting around going, yeah, it's a $10,000 job. I'll be there tomorrow. Oh, it's a $200 job. Yeah, I'll get to you in 17 years. Right. And so, I said, well, look, do you have a recommendation? He's like, oh, I got this ProPress tool. I'm like, let's do it. So we cut out the section, put it in, crimped it. The hardest thing was the fact that we had to take out a blocker between the two joists because they had put the pipe in and we couldn't move the pipe enough to get the tool around to crimp it. So I had to take the blocker out. Then we get the pipe around, crimp down, done. So if I was redoing a house and if I was redoing a house, I would use PEX. I must admit, I would.
Oh
go
yeah,
with
PEX
piping and
PEX is the future. Period.
Right, but if I desperately wanted the house to use copper pipe, because I happen to be a really rich bastard and I wanted copper everywhere, because gold pipes are so passé. I would absolutely buy. Like, I could see why pro plumbers buy these things and pay the $2,000 or whatever, or $4,000 for a tool.
It's going to pay itself off in like 3 jobs.
Yeah. Right, because the whole thing, once we worked out how to get to the pipe, it was like 4 minutes to replace the whole thing. And so if you had done this, if you were a true, like a proper plumber that knew, seen that before, here's what I have to do, blah, 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 the whole job would have taken 15 minutes to do, knock it out, done. Here's your $500 bill, Mr. Goodhue. Thank you for playing. Right.
Thank you for paying for part of my gun.
And I'd say, congratulations, son. I guess you just couldn't make it as a long snapper. Two most profitable careers for any young boy to follow: plumbing, long snapping. So that's me. Anyway, and so I was suggesting today's topic to be,
Oh, you have a topic.
Software is getting worse. Is it the people, the processes, or the technology. And I think this is a fertile ground. And the reason I was proposing this topic was that my Amazon Fire TV stick, is pissing me off, right? I basically I use it to put, old Top Gear on, because I own all the old Top Gear stuff.
Right.
Right. Well, some dickhead did an update to the software, and now it always takes me to the start, like to the current season, which I don't own. And the reason I don't own it is the current season is filmed by a bunch of talentless midwits.
Oh, it's trash.
That couldn't find their ass if you got them a map, a compass, a GPS machine, and a native fucking guide, right? And I don't want to watch that. They have no, I didn't want to watch the Chris Evans era. The guy's a chinless waste of humanity.
Oh, Chris Evans era was terrible.
But it always takes me through. And then when I go back to the seasons I do own, it intersperses all of the you can buy this episode thing. I'm like, I already own it. Why are you even offering me the chance to buy it again? And so that's where I started thinking about it. It's like, yeah, I've had more and more experiences in Windows, in Amazon software, on my Samsung phone, and that the software is getting worse. The experience is getting worse. Why is that? Is it the people, the processes, the technology, or maybe even possibly it's the business forces behind it? So, gentlemen, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I was going to start with, but I think you kind of answered it. Have you just had a bad time with one piece of software, and now you're saying all software is bad and getting worse?
No, I have to back Tony on this. I've seen enough in recent history, and we'll get into it at a time. Like, it's not just Fire Stick. It's not just, which we're obviously never going to be sponsored by now. Thank you. Yeah. Roku has been the same way.
More selective.
Just to be in the same vein, Roku's been just as terrible for me as well. I've ended up moving straight to using the smart TV's ability to just use apps because it's been a better experience, period.
Yeah.
The HDMI protocol involved seems to make the thing, if it's live TV, start clipping so hard on keyframes that I'm getting jittery audio, video for sports. That's the last thing I fucking want. So
I think when I was thinking about this topic, and I think from my perspective, my gut reaction is this is business forces causing this problem, or business creating a culture where our software developers don't care, right? Because I think there's a bigger, I think that software developers in general do really care about creating good software, but
wait, which company did you work at that was the case?
Well,
yeah, I'm curious too.
I'm not naming names.
Almost got him. We almost got him.
Almost. But I think that, from a sales perspective or a business perspective or a customer perspective, what they want is a list of features, and what a software developer needs to be delivering isn't just a list of features. They need to be thinking about performance and scalability and usability, and we see as software developers a software system as a network of interconnected components, but our customers and our sales dorks see it as a list of features. And they're always going to deprioritize the stuff that, we all know is actually really important to software product. And I think that kind of continual pressure of give me the features, what's in the next release, which I think we've talked about in prior podcasts, can kind of corrupt your dev team where they stop caring, right?
See, I've always maintained the maxim that no dev wants to work on setup. And I use that as a general saying because what it really means is that no dev wants to do maintenance work. Every dev wants to work on the new shiny. They want to work on new features. They want to work on stuff that's hey, we can make, Notepad should have AI integrated into it now. It's like, well, how about we make it not suck? Oh, no. We need AI better. And things like that. And so I should have added people, processes, technology, and business, because I do think business, but I actually fundamentally think it is a combination of people and technology that are limited by the process they use, and I guess driven by the business forces. Now, what I mean by that is that more and more, I'm seeing every piece of software come out as though it was written for a phone. Whether you're running on a phone, on a desktop, on a tablet, on a laptop, on a TV, whatever. Everyone gets there and, it's like, it's written for a phone. And so the phone experience, the stuff people put up with on phones should now be what you put up with on the desktop. And I'm like, that's a regression in the quality of the experience that I used to have, right? Look at, so I will give you the Windows example right now. There are now 3 different ways of updating software on Windows. I'm like, I don't know what retard came up with this thing, but they should fire their fucking ass right now, right? And it's the process that caused it, because the store team, was basically dysfunctional. And so you couldn't get them to do anything. So you came up with your own updating system, right? But you already had Windows Update. So why didn't you go to that team and speak to them about doing that? Well, the process, it's hard to speak to those guys because they don't do this, they don't do that. And I get it. I understand business-wise why you did it. What I don't understand is why somebody somewhere more senior didn't go, all right, everyone, out of the fucking pool right now. We need to fix this. It's broken. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, I think. And then when you add, I don't want to get off on a rant here, as Dennis Miller would say, but you add the stunning lack of enthusiasm that modern devs have for languages that oppress them by requiring that they use the right types of variables, requiring that they actually care what gets handed back to them from a function call. It's like, we used to say back in the Visual Basic days that variant was the root of all evil. And it was because you could declare a variable variant and then pass it anything. And it would go, oh, boys, I got it, And then you try and use it as integer and shit would just go like Tango Uniform immediately. And and so you look at like JavaScript, everything is late bound, because God forbid the dev had to deal with a compiler throwing an error. It's way better to have the user get an error in their experience
in
than
English,
having my delicate psyche impacted by like seeing a CL retard error come up on the compile line. So I did get off on a rant. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say congratulations on that. But
yeah.
I think one of the big problems right now in software, and when you look at it, a little bit of what you were saying, Tony, about the phone problem that's going on, and then you also start looking at the fact that things need to move very quickly. One of the biggest problems that I've seen, at least from my level in software these days, is that it's no longer about getting customer feedback and building towards customers. It's starting to go that whole same problem we were fighting when I was at Windows, where the entire idea was like, I'm going to install Windows on my so-and-so laptop from company with 2-letter or 4-letter name. But half of my software, half of my experience is being subsidized by other companies. They're going to throw in all their craplets that destroy this thing. And so the same thing is happening now with a lot of these devices. You've got all this stuff coming in, and it's like, hey, I want to go this way because I think it's going to be good for the user. But yeah, can we get X, Y, and Z in here too and let them have an experience in this moment and make this be better? And now we're focused on building that instead of the fact that there's new standards coming out for, especially when we start talking back on like the Fire Stick you're talking about, and same thing with Roku. Like, all these companies are taking these standards and stretching them as far as they can to get more of their experience and their AdSense in and all these things happening, that by the time we get to the end product, it's buggy as shit. It's doing crazy things. And that the focus is more on how do we subsidize our development plan around getting this out versus actually really a strong, straightforward user experience. It's one of the reasons why I kind of really, one of the few things I do feel Apple does very well. I don't like their walled garden, but it is absolutely all in their control. You don't get Apple sponsored by, I don't know, Lenovo or something, or that's a bad one, by like Facebook or Meta or something like that, right?
Let's be clear to anyone that might be listening to this. We love China.
Oh, yeah.
The Chinese Communist Party is a beacon of like hope for humanity.
And we look forward to our new overlords. But
it's either going to be China or ChatGPT. But
absolutely. Well, I'd love to talk about. I'd love to talk about that, because that is actually like what just happened with their CEO and all the shit that went down. Their board stood up for something they thought they believed in, and all the developers railed with this idea of like, you got rid of the guy that was running this because they were going more commercial versus their original plan of bettering humanity.
Right.
And when the board stepped in and did something about it, everyone said, what the fuck? Like, I
think OpenAI would be an interesting topic later on if any of us actually knew really what was going on behind the closed doors.
We don't, but there's enough to say there some of that was to play, because like one of the other board members had released a paper and it got shit on around that, and then they decided to back her instead of the other. There's a lot that and I'll wait to do it, but this talks to that.
Brag back to your original comment, right?
Yeah.
You didn't confuse, but you intertwined a few things that I think you and I are probably very familiar with, but other people might not be. You know, there's Microsoft, used the term OOBE, which was OOBE, stood for out of box experience.
Yep.
And so the theory was that the OOBE for Windows was that, when you booted it first time, you get prompted for name, what did you want to call things, blah, blah, blah. And the OEMs, or the original equipment manufacturers, wanted to, do the craplets as, I've referred to them, Rob everyone refers
like
to them.
McAfee and all those.
Right, because some dickhead will pay them, $17 a machine to stick Norton, McAfee, whatever, whoever the hell owns it these days.
Right.
I mean,
onto the machine, right? And because their margins of hardware were so small, often these hardware companies that were releasing these machines, they'd make all their profit on the craplets that they included in the machine, because the price of the machine was driven to the basement. We then have the ad content thing where individual apps, this was sort of, I think, the next theme I teased out of your comment, Rob. Apps themselves, the app developers were like, well, no bugger wants to pay me for my app, so what I'll do is I'll sell the app, I'll make the app free, but then you get ad-driven content in there. And then it's like, companies like, well, for us to continue growing, we need more revenue. How to get more revenue? Well, we slam more ads into our free product, right? And so this comes back to the people, I think. One of the things that and this is, I'm going to tank the ratings on the podcast here. So we're going to go
all the way down from 5 to 1.
We're going to go from 3 to 0 right now.
Sorry, New Zealand. We'll miss you.
I think that like one of the great hypocrisies of the open software movement is that they want everything to be free. If you drew a line, the line would be below my software. Everything below my software should be revenue free. My stuff you should have to pay for my work.
I should get paid for what I'm doing.
Right.
Right.
And that's the thing is,
I'm doing God's work. Yeah.
people aren't giving you free stuff. Like, if the product you're getting is free, then that's nature's way of telling you you're the damn product. Google is selling, isn't giving you free shit. They're selling you to somebody else, right?
Yep.
And to be clear, I'm not saying while I think Google could disappear up their own anus tomorrow and the world would be a better place, Microsoft still it would do the same thing, right? You don't get Hotmail for free because Microsoft loves you. They're doing they're doing the same thing, right? And at least on the Apple side of stuff, they have a fan base that is rabid enough. Like, if you stuck an Apple logo on the side of a house brick, they'd buy it as an accessory for their MacBook Pro. And so, it is money and it is people. It's like nobody wants to work for free. People still need to get paid.
People need to eat.
And then the process part of it is nobody wants to plan a product anymore, right? Because what phone apps have taught everyone is you shit things out and then you do an update, and you do an update, and you do an update, and you do an update. And if you update fast enough, then hopefully the people that suffered the most, which were your most loyal fan base that you won't upset because they're rabidly loyal. So by the time the people that don't really care about you but go, hey, that app's not a bad idea, you fixed all the heinous problems that you had, and now you've just got the normal problems that suck. And so, that process model, I think, is broken. We've gone from being engineers, and to an extent, prior to the inflation of saying software people are engineers rather than artists.
What is your computer doing, Russ?
I'm trying to fucking mute this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of problems, and anyway, go on.
They lost the artistic part of, I want to build quality things up front. I want to plan what I build. They don't want to be engineers. They want to basically be code monkeys that churn shit out and make money.
And a detachment from actual customer feedback.
Well, I think this comes back to what I was saying earlier, which is, for our salespeople and our business and our customers, frankly, they just care about a list of features. And they're not talking about performance and compression and is the installer any good, or, they're not. Those aren't priorities for them, nor would they ever be for everything is focused around what's my minimum sellable product or what's my minimum viable product. Well, my minimum viable product is something I can sell, but it's probably not going to be a great user experience. And to your point, Tony, the first folks who adopt it are going to have a shitty time because we prioritize that list of features as opposed to a seamless installation experience or a seamless troubleshooting experience or a seamless whatever, implementation. We're just trying to crank out features. And I think that philosophy starts to bleed into your development team where they're like, well, I guess nobody gives a shit if this thing performs well or not. I got to get feature X out the door.
See, and I think your desire to avoid software quality shouldn't occur until you've got a massive code base, right? And that sounds counterintuitive, but the thing I'm saying is that when you've got a small code base and a smaller app and you're new in the market, you should be focusing on quality and delivering it. Once you've inherited 20 years of crap legacy spaghetti code that's hung around, right? Now turning around and saying, okay, we need to fix stuff. You're looking at things like, well, yeah, we know there's no one that works at the company anymore that even understands what this black box does, right? But the black box works, so let's not touch it, and that's, I think you end up in, but you got to get to like millions of lines of code before you sort of should be in. Well, I get it's not millions of lines of code. I guess you have to end up with some number per dev at some point, right? Because
some kind of critical mass.
There's some number that once if you've got 2 devs, it's very, very quick that you get to the point where you can't afford to go back and look at it. But if you've got 2,000 devs, then that number is surprisingly the same as well. But I keep looking at stuff and I keep thinking that every one of my software experiences got worse in the last 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. This pendulum comes around to technology. I might have talked about this before on the podcast, but I'll kind of bring it up again. I mean, the reason Surface happened was because our Windows experience was so bad compared to how Apple was, that we built a group, and I'm probably out of Indiana at this point. It's been years, but they made the colors group, and
you've cashed those layoff checks. You're good to go.
Oh yeah, they're done. Come at me now, Microsoft. Tomorrow, fuck, they came at me. But with that in mind, I was part of a group that was building the colors. There was 4 colors involved, and they were probably the 4 big hardware companies building Windows devices that you think they are. And we worked with them for about a year and a half, and realized this wasn't working. And that's how Surface was born, because we wanted to prove that we could have Windows be a clean, good Ubi experience, as Tony already alluded to, with real good integration, right drivers, none of this extra bullshit involved, real system. And that was a big swing the right way for Microsoft. I was very happy with what we did there. Those projects helped move the ball back in their favor, especially considering we were coming out of how terrible Vista went, but Windows 7 was a good event, and it was so funny to realize, if you understood, like, Vista was Windows 7 just with a different UX experience, and we had some time to clean up drivers.
Right. Well,
and boot.
You could argue, and I would argue, that the core of Vista is
still there.
No, the core of Vista, there was not. So I got to sort of like articulate this correctly. The driver stuff that you pointed out, the drivers were a flaming dumpster fire, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you get when you move shit out of Ring 0 to Ring 3, when you make people that used to not have to care about stuff suddenly have to care about stuff. Right. You get that, right?
Yeah.
But the core, like, kernel and so on, there was not a lot of problems with that. Most of the problems with Vista were all related to GDI and the upper layers. That,
hang on, what does GDI mean?
The graphics device interface, right?
Yeah. Just for people who might not know, I want to make sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We saw
mostly Russ. We
saw Russ starting to nod off there and needed to sort of.
He was half asleep. I was waiting for him to start squeaking again.
Let's not get started on Aero. Right, let's take Aero.
No,
and put it in.
That's a podcast in itself.
Put it in its
probably
own little
ready for a lawsuit.
That we can. Yeah.
I guess what I wonder is,
I forgot about Aero.
How do you? So we're just standing around shaking our canes at this problem.
Get off my damn lawn.
How do you solve this? Right? Like, how do you make devs care? How do you?
This is one of those things that I was kind of getting at when I brought the pendulum in all of this. Is it's got to start swinging back towards I'm still trying to get through this first Mac and Jacks. It was terrible. Tony, go get a drink so I can actually get a word in. Oh, fuck, I'm all alone. It's just me now. So
Keep talking, Rob.
I'm listening to myself talk. That end, the pendulum has moved very hard towards all these companies and this idea around partnerships and how all this works. I think what will start happening is there'll be enough failure in the market, and I think we're starting to see some of that to where it'll start to swing back the other way again, where you've got companies with a real vision to bring customers back to the table, and that's where we'll start to see things. I think we're like 2 years from that.
When you say failure, like what does failure in the market look like when you say
People
that?
stop buying your shit.
Okay, all right.
Period. People stop buying your shit. People were buying Macs instead of Windows. We couldn't have that. Not at Microsoft.
So
Yeah, okay.
I think from a fundamental software engineering perspective, then I use the inverted commas around engineering. The key to not running into this is code hygiene and bug debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think if you have 100 devs, no, well, let's use something that somebody that's listening
10
to
of
this,
them did work, and the other 90 should have been gone.
Yeah,
What? Go on.
don't get me started.
I know.
You know, if you have 10 devs, right, they have, 10 man years of work you could do in a 1 year release cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Though that's not how the modern system works, where people are throwing shit out every week and so on, right? But just work with me because it makes the numbers easier to sort of say, or, you end up with like 10 man years of work. So you've got bugs and there's a cost to fix them, right? That's
why you budget for it.
Rework that needs to be done because you're going to do a new feature and you just have to rework some of the core to support the new feature. You have to, I think, pay that cost up front, right? At the start of every release, whether you're on a weekly schedule or whatever, there's some percentage of your dev time that you must spend on bug fixing and code hygiene and all that. There is some percentage that you must spend on building core infrastructure that will support your future goals. And the remainder you can use to build new features and go after new markets and things. The problem is the first two don't generate, and this comes back to what you were saying, Russ, the first two don't generate revenue. You can't go to somebody and say, like, you should give us another year subscription because we crashed 27% less now, right?
Right.
Yes, because what you first bought was our MVP, and we all can agree that's a hot turd, and we're making it better, but we would like you to pay us more money for a less hot turd.
Right. So you need
This one's twice as delicious as the last one.
you need to you need to take the anally inserted calamari and
I love bringing it back
and use it to don't use it, just get rid of it, just dump it.
We should name this episode Squid Games,
I was ready to let the calamari die right where it was.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, I couldn't land that analogy.
A trap.
That analogy flew gerbil-like into the glass window of reality.
Please spark up if you got fucking Russ's joke.
No, you have to, and it takes. This is people. It takes management, backbone to be able to say we are going to spend that percentage of our dev resource to ensure that we have, and this is nothing, to ensure that we have a future to do. And this is nothing that any other industry does the same thing. Right? You look at you look at people that are just entering the business of, say, doing automotive repair, right? They spend some amount of time on building tools, on making sure that their workshop is laid out correctly, making sure things are efficient, and then they spend the rest of the time fixing cars, right? But they spend some amount of time, and we don't in the software industry, because everything is so ephemeral, it just lives in the ether. You know, it's like, oh, we don't have to do any of that. We'll deal with it when it happens. You know?
Yeah. And I had a couple of bullets just from thinking about this topic before we got on the call. I don't want to give you guys the impression that I prepare a lot for this, but
on a Rob and I do it all seat of the arse, just right.
One of my notes sounds a lot like what you're saying, Tony, which is we have to be allocating time to solve technical debt in every release or every sprint or whatever your cycle is. You've got to have a budget of time that is, I'm doing stuff that's not going to make the salespeople happy or not going to make my customers, like they may never even know that it's a thing that needed fixing, but that tech debt has to be accounted for and dealt with in every sprint. And then maybe part of the solution is that we as software developers and product managers have to like educate our business and our customers that, you know, this is part of the, like, tech debt will always be there, and this is part of the price you pay, right? But what I see in the work that I do is, you know, we just, like, everybody's so excited about a minimum viable product or a minimum sellable product, and then once it's out the door, we're on to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. And what we should really be educating our business and our customers about is, this is you know, when we release this software, what's its life cycle? How long is it going to be around? And by the way, as long as it's around, there will be work that needs to be done on it, because we cut corners to get something out the door initially. And so there's always going to be more to do. And I don't, you know, I think, you know, part of what, like, I started this conversation thinking about, well, the business and the customers are shitty and they're demanding lists of features and they don't care about, you know, good quality software. But, you know, I think part of that equation is us as the technology experts educating them that there's things we need to do to, you know, improve this. And I feel like maybe that's part of our responsibility, is just educating business and customers on what tech debt is and what keeping a product, you know, alive requires. And we don't talk about that because we're too busy trying to sell it to the next customer.
Well, you know, this comes back to what I said. Nobody wants to work on setup, right? You know,
or fucking even cleanup.
You know, devs don't want to work on, you know, nobody gets promoted because they've done code hygiene, right? And that's sort of the thing. And you know, they did, I think one of the worst things that, you know, that Microsoft ever did, and this is not just simply because they laid Rob off. I think one of the worst things they ever did was to get,
thank you for that, Microsoft.
Was to get rid of the SDET position, which was the software.
I don't know what Tony's saying right now. I'm just going to keep talking.
He's just going to ASMR this whole thing. Exactly. What was so SDET was software development engineer test, and so that was somebody whose job was to primarily test the software, but also could occasionally futz around and write some actual software. You know,
yeah, I did that. Yeah. Thank you.
Rob has built a career on this accidentally, sometimes occasionally writing software.
And those guys, I thought, were critical to the success of the code quality that you ship, right? And they got rid of that, and then they turned to this agile thing where it's like, we're going to do 2-week sprints, you know, and all this stuff. And I think they took the...
Are we back on the idea that agile's killing the world?
Back off for a second, bro. They took the wrong lessons from the agility part of what agile was meant to be. And rather than being that, it turned out where we, you know, produce code that was basically, you know, the devs just wanting of what they wanted to work on, right? And you've never seen, you know, I knew this was going to fail when you asked them to do something they didn't want to work on. There were like a billion process and methodology reasons that they couldn't do it. But when they wanted to work on something they wanted to work on, it was suddenly, oh, none of that. No, that doesn't. We can do this. It's like, I'm like, well, fix this. It's like, well, it's going to take 4 weeks. Our sprint's 2 weeks. Everything has to be in a sprint. You can't do it unless it fits in a sprint. I want to work on this feature of like enabling telekinetic control of the mouse. It'll take 17 years. It's like, oh yeah, okay. We'll just put that in, right? And I think that the combination of that, and I come back to the topic, people, process, and the technology, the tools, the languages people use, this whole late-bound methodology, the drive of the web of like, I can release a web page. Oh, the web page sucks. I can release another one tomorrow, and nobody,
yeah,
that's right. Because
hit refresh, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, and that thing is fundamentally incompatible, I think, with client-side devices. If all you're doing is hitting a web page, yeah, great. You can release daily. Nobody cares, right? You'll only make 1 day's worth of your customers hate you.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll forget after that it works for the next day.
I think I see what you're saying, Tony, which is that web deployment methodology has bled into enterprise software, right? Where, from a web perspective, yeah, if it's just a fucking page or a blog post or whatever, you can, redeploy it and it's no big deal. But if you have to install it on-prem or it's on your machine or on your phone, it's a bigger problem.
It's blended everywhere, Russ. Look at like the last couple of weeks, that Rivian thing, where they released an update that bricked some of their trucks, right?
Oh.
And it's like, oh, no, well, we fat-fingered something. I'm like, no, you didn't fat-finger something. It showed that you have basic broken processes, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, no, we used the wrong certificate. I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is that you have a signing step and a release step and no test step between those two, right? And
and none of the three of us are surprised by that.
No, not remotely, because the web model is like, oh, my web page, I included the wrong jQuery library in the web page.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just like push the web page again. There's no great problem.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. But now your truck needs the latest Node.js, and now.
I think the core thing comes down to it. And I'm landing the plane for multiple reasons, including the fact I all I can do is hear Admiral Akbar's voice muffled in my anus. 2, I
I'm
need
so
to go
glad
piss.
that you caught my "It's a Trap."
Oh my god, that was great. Yeah, and 3.
That's the reason he has to land the plane. Is that
yes?
It's not so much he has to land the plane. He has to get to the gate and let the passengers off.
Absolutely, it is time. Everything that's in there is coming out. So the bottom line is this: as far as I see it, I think one of the core issues that I'd love to dig into at some point, I think our engineers have become more obsessed with the process than the customer. Our sales have become more interested in the sale than the customer. I don't really, and I also would say a lot of the people that work in these things see it more as a job than actually like, hey, I'm passionate about what I'm building for this customer, and I am also one of those customers. At some point, these all need to come back together and be one thing, and I think if you start doing that, it helps. That's one of the things I've been preaching a lot lately is like, if this isn't your 80%, get the fuck out then, because how are you going to build this for somebody else when you're not in that field in some way? We've become so mired in just the engineering process because that's what we do and we're so specialized to it that it just makes more engineering process and not an actual real product.
This sounds really trite, but I never walked into a day working on Visual Studio saying, like, I'm just going to bang this shit out and go home. Right. It was always about like every decision. It's like, are we making it better for customers? Are we, and that might be that decision, that simple statement. Am I going to make it worse for customers right now, but better for customers in the long run?
Mm-hmm.
and then it's my job to, we should articulate that. We should be transparent about why we're doing it. We should tell them. And sometimes, you have to render under Caesar that which is due, and you can't explain that to the customer because management doesn't want you to say you're doing this. But every time I looked at doing stuff, I was like, how is this benefiting the customer? Why are we doing this? Is this going to make a customer's life better? And I felt really, really damn good about doing that. I'm not saving the world. I'm making a dev tool, for Christ's sake. It's like, I'm not Bob Geldorf dragging people out of wells in like sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
But damn you're going to be able to put extensions into Visual Studio and going to love the usage of them. Right.
And to back that up, because I'm putting extensions into Visual Studio and I like them as a developer. Like, that's one of the things that really shocked me lately. I was using the word like, let's dog food this. And everyone's like, what the fuck does dog food mean? And I'm like, you're the first person eating this shit before it goes out. That's what that means. Like, go and use it. The fact that I have developers not using the products they're building blows my fucking mind. I hate it.
You are part of that problem too.
I am a problem.
No, because again, I railed against Windows when I was on Visual Studio. You guys wouldn't use Visual Studio to build Windows. And it all kept coming down to, oh, no, we've got special needs. We're like, special people. We can't possibly use this, blah, blah. It was because no dickhead wanted to work on setup. None of your guys in Windows wanted to fix all the stuff they had to make Visual Studio work in the Windows environment. You got it to where you wanted it. And you're like, damn the torpedoes. We're going to go deliver features.
I can't remember our build tool right now, but it was completely different than when Visual Studio used. And you raised a great fucking point. Exactly that. If anything, that backs up my problem.
Didn't even use the editor. They created Razzle because they were, Visual Studio
Razzle was great. Yeah.
Too heavy, right?
Well, also,
and as somebody that worked on Visual Studio IDE on the integrated development of art part of Visual, that just burnt my ass.
Dude, to be fair, we did once try, and Visual Studio tipped over, caught on fire, and sank into the swamp. Right. And we're like, well, we're back to Razzle.
Right. But rather than doing the right thing, which was the right thing would have been to say, it did not work.
Raise the X-Wing out of the swamp.
Let's work together to make it work.
Make that better, exactly.
Right.
And that's missing.
Instead, the thing was, our small group of people tried it. It didn't work, so we went back to doing what we're doing, right?
And it did give us the name Firewalker, by the way, so we're all cool with that.
So that's the thing, and I saw this. I saw this in different cases. We had a complete extensibility model, and teams were still snapping our source tree and building their own shit on that, rather than creating a plugin and using it. I had that discussion with the Windows 8 guys. And I'm like, come on, why are you doing this, right? If our stuff doesn't work,
Windows 8.
Send it up the chain, have your VP talk to our VP, and then send it back down, right?
There's an episode for Windows 8 at some point. I'm ready for that nightmare.
I'm kicking back and watching Rob try to land the plane.
All right,
no, we're good. Yep. I'm about to say, Russ, you get the final word because Tony said everything he's done, and we're out the door.
All right, I'm going to go cook up some calamari.
Hell yeah. I will be there, bent over, ready for it.
and Rob will release the Kraken.
I can never see that again now. Thanks, guys. If anything else, I'm glad we've at least tormented our audience for the last hour. It's good to be back in the thing.
I just want to say it tentacles.
Guys, I appreciate you.
You can edit that out in post.
No, I'm glad we're back. All this is going in. I'm gonna live up to this. I can't even get drunk off of Mac and Jacks anymore. This fucking shit sucks.
After this episode, I'm considering leaving my underwear next to the monkey enclosure again.
Whoa. I'm gonna step in and save you from whatever that was about to be. But if I'm being honest, I kind of forgot that I had to do an outro to this, so I've got nothing prepared. Takeaways. Maybe the lesson from all of this is that capitalism strikes again. I know they did one, but This one seems way more accurate. Trust me, I'm a professional. What a life these guys lead, huh? Most of us are out here worrying about student debt, and they get to sit here on a podcast talking about tech debt. Unfair. Actually, maybe it's my fault for choosing to study communications and philosophy in college. It's kind of depressing, actually. You know what? I'm gonna leave this here and go think long and hard about a bunch of my life decisions. So, take care, stay safe out there, and if I were you, I wouldn't eat the calamari. Cheers!